Likewise, when we're attached, when we're attached to the person, again, there's a sense that person, okay, there's a mind. I've never been attached to a mind, it's like, oh, that kind of awareness. I like that awareness. I want to hold on, I want to hug it, I want to kiss it, I want to, like an awareness then actually just the awareness would be fine, right? Just having the awareness, kind of like you were able to suck it out. Oh, nice awareness, right? Or if you're part of a body, if I like someone's hands, they could just cut them off and oh, nice hands, Or I could take a corpse. If I'm attached to just the body, then I could just take the dead person and hug them, and how lovely, right? If they stay fresh, then okay. Put them in a refrigerator or something. I'm kidding a little bit, but I'm saying what we really attach to when it comes down to is the person. There's something there. There's a person there, right? There seems to be something other than their mind and body. That's what I'm attached to. With regard to anger, it's the same. I'm not really angry with their anger. I don't even blame the anger for whatever they do. I blame them. So there's, of course, Shantideva's very famous, what do I call it? Analysis. Very famous analysis in his Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Beautiful book. Is it available in Hebrew? No. Okay, well, your English is good enough, so you can read in English. The Bodhisattva's Way of Life, or the Bodhisattva Charyavatara by Shantideva. And in there, it's written in verse, but it's not difficult to understand. So in there, he basically writes, he says, do we ever get angry? When someone hits us with a stick, do we ever get angry with the stick? Of course we don't get angry with the stick. Why not? Because the stick is under the control of the person holding the stick. So then do we get angry with the person? Oh yeah, we get angry with the person. Well, we shouldn't be, because the person is under the control of their anger. So we should be angry with the anger. But that's exactly where it stops. Oh, I'm not angry with their anger. I'm not angry with the causes and conditions that gave rise to who they are, right? I'm not angry with, I don't know, all the circumstances. I'm angry with that person. So who is the person we're angry with? Who is this person? Does this person actually exist? Better be existent, because I spend a lot of time being angry with them. So that person better exists. Attachment, similarly. There is a sense, there's some essential person. It's not the mind, it's not the body. I'm also attached to mind and body. But depending on how strong my attachment is, if some of those minds were not there right now, I would still equally be attached to that person. So if there's a very loving mind that I associate with that person, even if that loving mind is not there, I'll still be attached. Right? If for the time being it's not there, it's not like I'm less attached. So I'm really attached to something else, to a certain person, something there. And the same is true for myself. I'm most attached to this one here. Again, there's a sense, mind and body, yes, they exist, but there's also a self there, something separate. Something separate. And so the separate I, that's what I'm attached to. Right? Okay? So this is precious. This I feel closer. This is me. I'm closer. So my mind and body, they're close to me. And since wherever is my mind and body, that's where my I has to be. And that is closer. Therefore, this is more precious. That's the sense of myself. And I act accordingly. So self-centeredness means basically I'm the center of everything. I'm most important. I'm most important because all I'm aware of is of my experiences in the mind and in my body. And since there must be a separate I, that I, which is my I talk about even my I, myself. Oh my God, that implies an owner of the self. An owner that's separate from the self. Again, my I. Interesting, right? Anyway, never mind. So, there's a sense there's something separate there, a self that is in control, that controls my mind, that controls my body. And since that experiences happiness and suffering, and I don't experience your happiness and suffering, therefore this is most important. That's what I need to look after. But that better exist. That better exist. Because if you tell me it doesn't, that would mean I've slaved my entire life for something that doesn't even exist. So it better be there. Right? And we spend so much time, so much energy towards the gratification, the well-being of the self. Right? We all do. Is there anyone who doesn't? I don't think so, right? We're all similar. Again, I said there's so many similarities we have, so why do we not feel close? We all want to be happy, we all want not to suffer, and we all slave for the same thing. For the I, right? Okay. Now, with regard to the I, so from a Buddhist point of view, that I, that particular I, doesn't exist. There is no self separate from I and mind and body. It's an illusion. It's like an optical illusion. You know, there's so many visual illusions. One very famous one is the sense that the sun moves around the earth. I mean, you sit at the beach and you get the sense that the sun is moving. Not that you're moving. It's not like that we're moving. Of course, that led to scientists in the past believing that the earth was still and the sun was revolving around the earth. And it looks that way. And we speak that way. The sun is setting. We don't say, oh, the sun, the earth revolved a little further, so now I can no longer see the sun. No, we actually say the sun is setting. We know rationally, but it feels differently. Oh, the sun is moved. We feel like really, oh, sun is moved towards the east now. Oh, where's the moon? Oh, it's just coming up over there, right? So intellectually, we know that's not true, but it feels differently. So there are these optical illusions. So if you see, for example, a computer screen, it's actually an optical illusion. It's pixels, right? Many, many different pixels. They give you a sense of some possibly three-dimensional entity, depending on the picture. So you can have drawings that, by nature of the drawing, they seem to come out. You can look these up. So if you have them on a screen, you actually just have pixels. But due to the pixels, they appear to be even three-dimensional. The same is true with our mind, especially with regard to the very complicated psychological makeup, our different awarenesses. It's a bit like there are lots of pixels, and they give us a sense there's an I that's controlling those. It's a total illusion. It's like an optical illusion. It seems to be there, but we've not so far found out that this is an illusion. We know that these pixels are just optical illusions. We know that certain drawings, I don't know, you've maybe seen these drawings. This woman who turns towards the right and the left, depending, in my case, she only turns left, right, way. Like the other day, I sat there for hours trying to see it the other way, I couldn't find. So, but there are lots of visual illusions. It's like anytime you look at it, it just appears to you that way. Or the dog, like there's a height of a dog, or I don't know, I just went... There are a lot of paintings, right, like that. So, likewise, and we've now found out, we are aware of those being illusions. We know about the sun, we know about the moon, so rationally, but no one has ever told us this is true for the I. In fact, I think the Buddha, of all the religious, of all the main religions, it was really just the Buddha who talked about there is no I. So it's not something we commonly hear. In fact, our society reinforces the sense of I. Be someone in the world. Be special, you know, go and find yourself, make a difference, or, you know, ego and superego, like Freud talked about ego and superego. Yeah. So there are a lot of ideas in our society that reinforce, I should say, the idea of an I. But from a Buddhist point of view, and here you should be very skeptical, it may totally be like, but that an I doesn't exist, it's just an illusion. It's like the summary of these awarenesses give us a sense there's actually a controller. Just as the summary of pixels gives us a sense there's a three-dimensional object. Right? And there are lots of things like that. When the coming together of many causes and conditions give rise to an appearance of something which actually cannot be found. So the coming together of our very, very sophisticated mind, no matter how mistaken we may be, our mind is very sophisticated. It's always there, it's very fast, it can take on any object, there's no limit to the objects it can take to mind, anything we can take to mind, you know, through habituation, our mind changes, our mind is very flexible, so our mind is amazingly sophisticated. And due to that sophistication, minds popping up, there's a sense there must be a controller, there must be something in charge. That's a bit like saying we have 50 trillion cells in our body. There must be a boss. There must be a controller. There must be a boss cell. A controlling cell that controls this organism. Yeah? And in the past, scientists had that sense, at least for the brain, once they understood that the brain is that is responsible for perception and awareness and decision making and so forth, that it played a huge part in that. Then they started looking for a control center. But they were never able to find such, because they don't need a control center. The brain just does its thing very harmoniously, just as the cells in the body do their thing. And they just work very well with one another. You don't need a controller. It's not necessary. It's just our perception of reality. So, therefore, from a Buddhist point of view, even our perception of an I, some separate entity that controls mind and body, no, it's not there. When I have a sense I'm controlling my emotions, that's just another consciousness that controls the emotions. When I say I watch my own mind, you know, you watch your own mind. Do you have a sense of that? A sense of you watch your own mind. It's not like a separate self. It is actually a consciousness watching the other consciousnesses. And it works really nicely with one another. We have, you know, stereo sound, very vivid experiences. The sense objects give us, and again, we have a very beautiful kind of optical illusion here, because the illusion is, it seems the colors are out there, right? It seems that blue and green, those colors are out there, but science has proven that there are no colors out there. They're only light frequencies. So the colors we perceive are not out there. If those colors are not out there, well, you can't have a shape, you can't have a colorless shape. So the shapes we perceive them, as we perceive them, they're also not out there. The sounds, and I've mentioned those before, as they appear to be, they're also not out there. They're just vibrations that they're interpreted by the brain and by the mind in the way we perceive music. So in other words, our sense perceptions are all mistaken. Not
even the object, because the atoms, it's not like we...
Even the atoms, very true. It seems very solid. Seems very... Yeah. So in actuality, this table is made up of thousands, millions, trillions of atoms. And each atom actually consists 99.99999% of space. So what we think is so solid and so, what's another word for solid? Kind of like so dense, actually isn't. It's mostly space. And when we believe, oh, I can totally locate where that spot is, the electrons that are part of the, you know, each atom that move around, they cannot really be located, right? They just, you have there's a fuzziness about where they're actually located. We cannot actually locate them. In other words, our sense perceptions are, the way they appear are mistaken. Am I making sense? And this is not, the Buddha didn't say that. None of that, the explanation of the color the Buddha didn't give. This is physics. This is modern science. I'm saying science and Buddhism has come together. The Buddha just said the way things appear to our senses is not correct. We're mistaken. So science has just added a little bit to this, supporting the same idea. The things that appear to our mind are totally unique. So the big question, when a tree falls over in a... That was a bishop. I just read the other day, it was a bishop. The question arose with a bishop. So anyway, when a tree falls over in a forest and there's no one to perceive it, does it make a sound? No. There's no tree either. Because a tree has shape and color. Shape and color, as they're perceived, how we define a tree, that kind of tree cannot exist unless, because there's no color. A tree is green of color and brown, etc. But if there's no one to perceive it, if there's no brain, if there's no retina, etc., to perceive it that way, you don't have a tree. So therefore the phenomena, the way they appear to us, they appear to us only because there's a consciousness. Phenomena can only exist because there's mind. So, as I said yesterday, of the appearances to the mind and consciousness, I don't know whether the appearances actually exist out there. I don't know. Because already I know that colors don't exist out there. Whether whatever gives rise to those colors is actually out there, I can't even prove that. I know one thing, I'm conscious. That I'm conscious, that I'm aware, that I know. So the one thing that we know is that we, each one of us, are aware. But that what appears to us, we are very much mistaken. A lot of the things, the way they appear, don't actually exist that way. So if we get a sense for that, then if someone tells us, well, even the I, the way it appears, doesn't exist, it's not that scary. It's not that surprising. Right? Maybe we're now ready to doubt. Okay, so far it's always seemed as if there was a self, but maybe that self, not that I'm not saying I don't exist, of course I exist, my mind and body exist, so therefore I can say I exist because I impute I on mind and body. But that separate self, that doesn't exist. Right? To keep it simple, in a very course, I mean there's more that needs to be said, but for this course this would be sufficient. So if I say I exist, well, I impute, I say I, on the basis of mind and body. Okay? So do I find a separate I? No. You can do the same with a car. A car is something I call a car on the basis of parts which are not cars. There's no car over there that's separate from its parts. No, I impute car on the basis of certain parts. I impute forest on the basis of a bunch of trees. Is there a separate forest? You know, if you were to remove each tree, you were left with a forest? No, right? And then, for example, 10 shekel, right? I impute 10 shekel on a piece of paper that was made by the Israeli mint and that the government decided on. No?
And a coin.
You don't have 10 shekel.
Paper now.
No surprising that the salesperson always takes my hand and takes my coins and then gives me back the rest. Okay. 20 shekel? Yeah. 20 shekel. So the 20 shekel note, you know, it's just a piece of paper which, based on the government's rules, so convention here, we've called it 20 shekel, right? And it has a certain value. But it appears to have a value from its own side. Initially, when first the mint printed the money, we were like, oh, whatever, you know, it's not even like 20 shekel. Oh my God, they're lying on the floor, let's pick it up. No, we don't get that sense. But slowly it changes, and it seems those 20 shekels are screaming, I'm 20 shekel, I'm valuable. Are they that valuable? 100 shekel, right? 20 shekel maybe a few years ago. But, you know, so it changes. It's like, actually we just called it valuable, we gave it a value, and suddenly we believe from the side of the object it holds that value. Okay? So one example one of my teachers gave recently, let's say your new prime minister, you get a new prime minister and he's newly elected, his name is, not Bibi, a new one, a good one. No, I'm not saying he's not good, I don't know, but, you know, a new one. Give me a name.
Can't even imagine the options.
Pardon?
We can't even imagine the options.
Okay,
Shimon Peres.
Shimon Peres? Okay, yeah, I can say that name. Shimon Peres. Okay, never mind, we're just okay, Shimon Peres, we don't need to do political discussion. So Shimon Peres, he becomes prime minister. Before he wasn't. So initially, he was, right? But there's a new Shimon Peres now, right? The incarnation of Yitzhak Rabin. So there's Shimon Peres. So Shimon Peres, he comes along, you know, he's a new guy, we don't know him, and suddenly he's called the prime minister. So the first time we see him, it's like he's the prime minister. We need to remind ourselves, oh, it's the prime minister. Oh, right, that's him. Oh, it's no longer Bibi. I'm just kidding. So it's no longer him. So now it's Shimon Peres. Okay. And then after a few months, it's almost like Shimon Peres is screaming. Like, it's not, you know, he's very humble, he doesn't scream that, but it seems like he's saying, I'm the prime minister. Suddenly there's a prime ministerness coming from his side. And then he loses the next election. And the next time we see him, it's like, oh, there's the prime. Oh no, he's no longer. We need to remind ourselves now he's the ex-prime minister. And it takes a while to get used to it. You see, we give these names to objects, we impute, and after a while, because of the habituation of our mind, it seems the object in and of itself, independent of us calling it such, is that object. Right? So we do the same with I. For the sake of convenience, I say I refers to this mind and body. Actually, it's not fixed, because if you're a new mother, if you're a pregnant mother, the I has just grown a little bit, right? I remember my mom used to say that, you're part of me. And I'm like, oh, that's gross. I don't want to be part of my mom. I always thought that was gross. And my mom said, you're part of me. No, I'm not part of my mom. I'm my own individual. But to my mom, and when I talk to other moms, they say, yes, it feels that way, right? You feel like, I think you kind of said, like, you're part of, you mentioned that. There's a sense, didn't you say that yesterday? There's a sense a person is part of you. Yeah, as a mother and a child. There's a sense a child is part of you, right? So that means your sense of self can be extended. It's not fixed with this mind and body. So you can then extend it. If you have 10 children, wow, you got a big I there, right? So like a sense of I, where it's like, the same way as your I was precious, now it is extended. You're responsible for your I in the same way. So you don't say, grammatically, you wouldn't say I, but that sense of this is the center of the universe is now the same. So it's not actually written in stone. It depends on what we decide to call the I. I can include other people in it and make them equally important. And mothers can even feel the suffering of their children.
It's like when you meet someone from your hometown,
Yes.
far away, or from your country far away,
Yeah.
or someone that is closer to you than others,
Yeah.
then suddenly you feel that this extended I that you speak about.
Very interesting.
We are
Yes.
an
It's
extension of me here.
Yeah.
In
A part of me.
India or somewhere that
Yeah, exactly. You see, so that shows that this is just a matter of attitude. It's not like you can only think of I as this much. If I were to decide I'm not going to include this arm any longer, right? If I were to decide I won't include the I, well, I could do that. And there are people who actually have mental problems who feel like certain parts of their body no longer belong to them. Now, we call that a disease, but it's only possible to have that sense because there is no innate I. So it's a matter of perception.
So when you make plastic surgery, you change a part of the eye.
Exactly.
You don't want
Very
it
good
anymore.
example. Yeah, you have a heart exchange. No, heart transplant, right? Suddenly it's your heart. You know, fake boobs or whatever, suddenly it's part of you, right? So all that, like, yeah, very good point. Like some people have face transplant. It's new change. You feel like I. So even physical objects can become part of the I. Yeah, and you can actually shed, because if you're a nun, you know, every month, no longer I. Paperback, you know, garbage bin. You know, every month or every 2 weeks you shed. Okay. All right. So the point is, therefore, for the sake of convenience, I call something I. In the same way, for the sake of convenience, I speak of a forest, I speak of a prime minister, but there is no separate I. There's not an entity from its own side other than mind and body. I just say I when my consciousness thinks a thought, I say I think, right? For the sake of convenience, because every time I say this particular consciousness has just had a thought, it's bizarre, right? So for the sake of convenience, I use the word I thought about tomorrow. Actually, it was a consciousness thinking of tomorrow. Or I have a headache. Actually, what's hurting is the head. So I say I have a headache. Really, the I that hurts, it's not there. Okay? And then I may feel frustrated about it. Well, that's a mind and awareness that feels frustrated about the headache. So the point is just there's different parts that I associate with the I, and if any of those parts does something, I say the I does so. Right? So when I say with a car, for example, when a part of the car breaks down, I say the car is broken. I'm not saying all the parts of the car is broken, because it's not all the parts. If I say the collection of the parts are the car, I have a problem, because if the car breaks, every part has to break. So when I say the car breaks, I'm imputing car on the broken part. So I say the car is broken. There is no separate car that is now broken. There's a part of the car on the basis of which I impute car. So when I write a letter, it's not like an I, an invisible I is picked up writing a letter. No, It's a hand, it's certain parts of the body that are responsible for writing the body, and on that I impute I. Okay, good, that's it. That's it. But I think there's something more. I feel there's something else. It's this illusion, that's how it appears to my mind, in the same way as it appears to be that the Prime Minister from his own side exists in and of himself as a Prime Minister after some time. My mind just is so habituated to that. So there seems to be an I. And if it was just that, it'd be all right. But that I is more important than others' eyes because it's closer. And therefore, I get attached to it. And I get attached to my happiness. My happiness is more important. My well-being is more important. My house is more important. My family is more important. It's all more important because it's all part of I. And from there, not just the attachment towards the I, but attachment towards other people. Because if it benefits that I, that sense of an I, well then I want it. So not only am I attached to that I which doesn't exist, I'm attached to anything that I believe benefits the I that doesn't exist. So then I'm attached to another I which doesn't exist in order to gratify this I which doesn't exist. Great, right? And then I can't help it. And then I worry if my I which doesn't exist doesn't get the other I which doesn't exist. And I worry. Or I get angry. If someone comes along and threatens that I which doesn't exist, another I which doesn't exist, I'm angry with them. I dislike them. And other afflictive emotions arise. I accumulate negative actions which cause me to suffer. Suffer? Why? Because I harmed something which is actually, and she said it so beautifully yesterday. What's your name? Mickey. Mickey said it very beautifully yesterday. She spoke about everyone is actually part of us. Right? She said, like, she gave the example of, like, what did you say exactly? If everyone is kind of a part, we're part of one big organism. So it's a bit like if my right hand harms my left hand. It's like, I wouldn't do this because a sense of I extends to this entire body. So if I harm my right hand with my left hand, well, it comes back to me. It comes back to me eventually. That's karma. But it's because of that imagination that they're separate, that they're disconnected, that I harm. So whatever harm I give out, because of the connectiveness, it comes back to that hand. My left hand goes out. So we imagine, not only do we imagine there's an inherent I, we imagine there's an inherent separation. There's more of a separation than there is. It's just a relative. Others is relative. I, the center of the universe, is relative from my perspective. From another perspective, you are I. You are the center of the universe. So I think I'm really the center of the universe. Not just from my perspective, I really am. Inherently, from my own side. And those are others. Yeah? And we're really, truly different. We're not really different. The difference is just a convention. It's relative. From my perspective, this is I. From your perspective, this is I. Right? So what I'm saying is it's all relative. There's nothing intrinsic, this and that. It's all part of the same thing and equally important, in other words. And since we're all connected, if I harm, so I'm actually not in accordance with reality. My perception is not in accordance with reality. Then my other mental states are also not in accordance with reality. And then I do things which are not in accordance with reality. In other words, I think I'm bringing happiness to myself by harming others. No. If I harm others, I harm myself. That's it. That's karma. Okay? If I harm others, I harm myself. Just as when my left hand believes by harming my right hand, it's going to benefit itself. No, it's actually sooner or later experiencing the result of the pain it's given. Okay? So that's our predicament. So therefore, it gives rise to these bizarre afflictions. And these afflictions, so you see, we've added something that is actually not there. We've added something which is not there. So our mind adds something, adds a reality to things that these things don't possess. So then it goes on to add things. When I'm angry, I add some negativity onto the phenomenon that the phenomenon doesn't have. When I'm attached to someone, I add some positiveness to the object, which actually doesn't exist. But we're not aware of that. We're not aware of that. So as oftentimes I give this example, and it usually makes people laugh because it's really extreme. But an extreme example shows